So what was everybody for Halloween?
I was a tree.
You were a tree? That's awesome. No, wait, let me guess. You were a tree, teenager, turtle, the Hulk. No, you were the Hulk, I bet. I don't know. Probably one of the minions. You were the guy with the minions, the big guy. Groot, that was you. And I bet Aubrey was, were you a garden gnome or a fairy? A deer. You were a deer. Wow, I got 2 right.
No, you were.
Yes, I know, you were Groot. I saw that, yes.
No one was the minion.
What?
He was Slimer. I was a zombie.
What?
And she was a witch.
Well, okay, but I said teenager. Come on. So, what are you saying I guessed wrong?
Yeah.
What? So what were you really?
Alice from Alice in Wonderland.
Alice from Alice in Wonderland. And that's who you guys were? And you weren't a witch.
Yeah, she was.
You came to our door. You weren't wearing a costume. Oh, I got a teenager. Okay, I was right. Okay, I got 3 right.
2.
Okay, so shall we go around the room, do you think, and guess what some of the adults were? Would that be fun?
Dinosaur.
Pardon me?
A dinosaur.
Were you a dinosaur, Ted? That's awesome. Were you Wilma Flintstone then? If he was a dinosaur? You were what?
A witch.
Hey man, there's a lot of teenagers. Okay. Wouldn't it be fun though to go around the room and guess what everybody was? No? When you picked your Halloween costume, why did you pick that? Because why?
I didn't know to pick it.
You didn't pick it? Your parents forced you to dress up and go out for Halloween to collect candy for them, didn't they? No? You got to keep the candy? Oh, that's good. Because you liked it. Why do you like Alice in Wonderland? It's a good movie. You like Alice? How come? No stress? Fun adventures?
I guess.
Sure. And I was asking, there's a little girl in Mirror, I was at church in Mirror before I came here, and she wanted to be Cinderella, because she really liked Cinderella, because she liked Cinderella's dress. But then we were talking about Cinderella, and it turns out there's other things she liked about Cinderella. So there was more to it than the dress, is the thing, right? So when you pick, do you know why you dress up on Halloween? Okay, it's because so people will give you candy, I know, but here's why you dress up on Halloween. Halloween comes from this really old tradition in, actually in North America. We get it from the Celts, which were people who lived in, well, parts of Europe, all parts of Europe, but mostly the ones that came here were from Ireland and England and Scotland and places, but really old, older than Mel even. And what they did, they believed that at this time of year, it's called Samhain, and it was a day when they thought that there's this curtain between the living and the dead, and on that day it's really thin, and the people on the dead side can get over to the living side. And so they come over to the living side and visit people. And so, I'm sorry? Kind of like in the Book of Life. Yes, kind of like in the Book of Life, yeah. There was a movie on Friday night, it's awesome. And some of them would come over and then people would get out food and they'd have a big feast and have food ready for them in case they were visited by one of their famous relatives or somebody important. And so people started to dress up so they could steal the food. Because they'd think it was them, right? And then other people started to dress up because they were afraid that some of the people from the dead side were going to come and grab them and take them back to the dead side. So they dress up so you wouldn't be able to recognize them. Did you recognize me this morning?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
You shaved your beard.
Thank you. Yes, I did. Do you know why?
Why?
Because, no, because last night I was being somebody that I'm not for Halloween. Do you know who I was being? No.
You just
I
stop.
was being Coleman in 30 years. Or actually, my other name tag said Old Fat Coleman. Do you know who that is? What? You don't know who that is? What? You mean only I know who that is? Does anybody else know who I'm talking about? You know who I'm talking about? Coleman Miller? Yeah, okay. So I shaved off my beard because I wanted to be really authentic because I figured in 30 years he wouldn't be able to grow a beard. So the point is, each of us dresses up on Halloween to be somebody we're not, right? And sometimes we pick something really scary. Sometimes we pick something that's really different, like a tree or a deer, or something really scary like a teenager. And sometimes we pick like our heroes or people that, Coleman is not my hero. I just want to be absolutely clear about that. Don't tell him that, okay? Nobody tell him that. But sometimes we pick people that we know that other people don't know, right? And that's one of the cool things about Halloween is sometimes we're things that are connected most to us. And what makes that really cool at this time of year is today is All Saints. And that's the day that the church talks about all the people in the church that over history, like forever, that have been really important to the church and been really good examples for us as Christians to follow, right? And that's what's so cool about All Saints is that there are so many saints. We kind of lost our video feed right before the service, which is too bad because the last song in that was a Roman Catholic song about all the saints. And what it was somebody singing the names of all of the saints they could think of to the tune of Gilbert and Sullivan, I am the very model of a modern Major General. Does anyone know the song I'm talking about? It's a patter song that goes really fast. I don't suppose you have it handy, do you?
Yeah.
Let's watch it. It's funny. If you've got it.
Yeah, just give me a second because I gotta get to the radio.
Because it's a big long list of people's names, some of which we might know, some of which we definitely don't. But that's the thing, is that we all know different people. Right? Because different people have meaning to us. Am I messing you up for the next thing too?
No, sometimes there's ads and sometimes there's not, so there wasn't this time.
Oh, excellent, okay.
There's Mary, Joseph, John the Baptist, James the son of Zebedee, and Peter, Andrew, Matthew, Philip, Thomas, John, Bartholomew, and Simon, Zebedee, Thaddeus, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Dismas, Paul, and Barnabas, and Stephen, Luke, Ignatius, Sylvester, Mary, Magdalene, and Martha, Mark, and Timothy, and Linus, Clement, Rufus, Tecla, Zosimus, Felicity, and Anacletus, Polycarp, Hippolytus, Perpetua, and Justin, Martyr, Christopher, Clement of Alexandria. There's Cecilia, Dennis, Ponchi, and Genesius, and Agatha, John and Paul, and Valentine, Cyprian, and Barbara, Gregory of Nyssa, Basil, Ambrose, and Lazarus, Augustine, Jonas, Austin, Boniface, and Athanasius. There's Hilary, Sebastian, Philomena, Lawrence, Finian, and Benedict, Scholastica, and Patrick, Cosmas, Damian, and Adalbert, and Anselm, George, and Giles, and Nicholas, and Beckett, Francis, Dominic, and Bonaventure, Stanislaus, Aquinas, Albert, Catherine, and Richard, Rita, Casimir, and John of God, Sir Thomas, Martin, Fisher, Francis Xavier, the John of Arc, Louis, Montfort, Joseph of Cupertino, Ignatius of Loyola, Aloysius, and Juan Diego. There's Therese, Don Bosco, Maria Goretti, Elizabeth, and Seaton, and Martin, Vincent, Bernadette, Antonio, Andrew, Kim, Degon, John Galgani, John Vianney, Teresa Benedicta, Maximilian, Catherine, Drexel, Padre Pio, John Amola. These are the only saints for lack of breath that I could mention, but there's many thousand more that are deserving your attention.
There you go. You get all that? This would be a test. But that's the thing, that's not even, and he hasn't even like scratched the surface. There's thousands of people that are officially called saints. Thousands. And some of them we haven't even heard of. But that's the thing, is that each of them has something that's important to somebody as an example of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And that's what's so cool about it. So, we're all going to sing that song now. You ready? How about if we sang something else?
Yeah.
Like, when the saints go marching in. Do you know when the saints go marching in? Do you know that? Because I have a really cheesy karaoke video. And by cheesy karaoke, I mean it's got a cheesy graphic thing in the background. But it's a Dixieland version of When the Saints Go Marching In. So we're going to sing. Right? Just follow the screen. Here we go. When the saints go marching in. When the saints go marching in. Oh yes, I want to be in that number. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Where the streets are paved with gold. Up where the streets are paved with gold. Oh yes, I want to be in that number. Where the streets are paved with gold. Instrumental bridge. I love how we can serious. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, yes, I want to be in that number. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Wait for it, just one more. When the saints go marching I love the enthusiasm and the energy in the room. That was awesome. Thank you so much for listening so patiently. Lori has something really awesome for you downstairs. My little angels.
Reading from John. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought they were going to the tomb to meet there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, there is already a stench because he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him.
Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our hope. Amen. That seemed a little bit ironic. Just as I was sitting there, Carrie came up to me and said, "You're dead," and handed me new life. Doesn't it strike you as a little bit ironic too, though, that the gospel reading for All Saints, the day after Halloween, All Hallows Eve, is a story about Jesus raising someone from the dead? Right? Because the traditions we know around All Hallows Eve are around the idea that it's a day when the dead walk, right? When we can be visited by people from the other side. And All Saints is the day in which we recall all of the people historically who have been great examples for people in the church of what it means to live like Jesus. And there are lots. We saw a little, there's like thousands. And that's just the ones who got labeled, right? I'm sure you're familiar that there's in the Roman Catholic Church, there's a process to sainthood. It's a very long and arduous process. Sometimes it can take centuries. Sometimes it can take years. But there's a process, and there's at least three different levels and steps that you have to go through in order to be proclaimed a saint officially and get saint in front of your name. Then as we move through the Protestant churches, saints become either less significant or not significant at all in terms of the title. The United Church, we're somewhere in the middle of that. Do you know what the most popular name for a United Church in Canada is? St. Andrew. Which is both an interesting nod to our Scottish Presbyterian heritage, and also the fact that St. Andrew is one of the fishermen, right? The boat is the symbol of St. Andrew. Saints have a different meaning. Officially, like with the title saint. But regardless of which church it is, everyone agrees that we are all saints. Hence, all saints. We are all saints. I know you're wondering about that. Some of you are especially looking at me and going, really? I can tell. I know what you're thinking. For the last a little bit more than half an hour, and for the rest of the service, you've seen, I'm sure you recognize all of these people. Did anybody recognize anyone? Oh, that's good, because I randomly picked them off the internet. They were just random faces. I just thought they were interesting. I have no idea who these people are, but they're all saints. See, I think that's the thing, is that it is within us to be saints. It is. The examples that we follow are the ones that simply teach us to live it out. That's why there's so many, is that we're so different. We have different ways of expressing our sainthood. But it's within us to be that. Lazarus, for example, Lazarus is really interesting because, and I mentioned this last week when I was talking about the idea that Bartimaeus is the only one who gets named, and he's coincidentally the only one who's healed, who gets named and follows Jesus. And that I suggested that might be because people would recognize Bartimaeus' name because they would know what he's done. Lazarus kind of falls into that boat too. Lazarus doesn't really get a mention until Jesus shows up at his house because he's dead. But he's not. And I'll say it again, let's be absolutely clear, he's not a zombie, Wyatt. He is not a zombie. That's what's so interesting about this story too, is that there's funny little quirks in this story, right? It's such a visceral story. There's a stench, because he's been in there for 4 days. There's a stench. So when he came out, when Jesus calls him out, and Lazarus steps out and he's wrapped in all of the cloths and everything that they wrap them in to bury them, and he steps out, did he smell? I know you were thinking it. I was thinking it. If there was a stench because he'd been in there for 4 days and now suddenly there is there? Did he walk around the rest of his life smelling really bad? Oh, here comes Lazarus, we can smell him. Jesus gives new life. Jesus gives new life to Lazarus. Right? And I think it's pretty safe to assume that no matter how long he'd been in the tomb, the Lazarus that came out of the tomb was Lazarus. It was Lazarus. It wasn't some sort of reanimated corpse thing. It wasn't a zombie. It wasn't a Frankenstein. It was Lazarus. Jesus not only gives new life, Jesus gives new life which is true to whose life it is. And there's the thing about saints. That's the thing about saints. Not only is it within us to be saintly, all of those things that we consider to be saintly, to be a good follower of Jesus, to be kind and loving and caring. An example of, in fact, the origin of the word is to be holy, to be an example of holiness. Not only are we capable of it, in drawing that out of us, it causes us to be true to who we are. That's why there's so many different saints, and there are saints for so many different reasons. Is that we're unique. And so drawing that out of us is simply to express truly who we uniquely are. There's a really great... Did we see the Shrek video? No, okay. We lost the video feed beforehand, and one of the videos that we were going to watch, we won't watch it now, but you'll have to come to the show and see it. There's a wonderful moment in the show, in Shrek, where Shrek's the ogre, right? He's an ogre. You know what an ogre is, right? In fact, as it happens, Shrek is pretty sure you know what an ogre is. It's bad, right? It's bad. And they've just rescued the princess, and the donkey's really excited because... Did I mention there's a talking donkey? Okay, there's a talking donkey. The donkey's really excited because he realizes if he can rescue a princess, he can do anything. He's really excited, and he says all these things that he could be. And then he says to Shrek, "What would you be?" And Shrek goes, "I don't want to be anything. Leave me alone. I'm an ogre. Look at me." But Donkey keeps at him, and finally he gives in, because he realizes that when Donkey met him, he didn't treat him like an ogre. So he sings this wonderful song, and you have to come see it. Damien's awesome in it. He sings this wonderful song about, I guess I'd be a hero. And how the different kinds of hero he could be if he could only be a hero. And then, of course, the song turns and he goes, "But I can't, I'm an ogre. I'm just an ogre." And what's really ironic about that, he already is one, right? A hero. He's the hero of the story. Not only is he a hero because he's rescued the princess, as it turns out he's a hero. Well, you have to see the show. He's a hero. He just doesn't know it. His true self isn't what everyone thinks a murderer is. His true self is a hero. So all these faces that you've been seeing, all you see is their face. You don't recognize them. You can imagine what's behind that face, but you don't know them. But in each of these people is the capacity to be saintly. There is. Now we're actually this program that we're doing in November about angels among us is the same idea, isn't it? It's to draw out the kindness, the generosity, the love that's in everybody, and to acknowledge it and recognize just how much there is there. See, you know, that's the thing. We can one day out of 365, right? So 365 days in a year. One day, we do All Saints. I mean, big name saints get their own days, right? I mean, you know, because they did. There's no Saint Robin, by the way. They get their own day. But there's only one day that's also, well, it should be 365, shouldn't it? Man, it's like Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving. It should be every day, shouldn't it? So that's what living the life that Jesus offers is about. It's about living those things every day. So Jesus brings Lazarus back from the dead. I don't suppose he just kind of sat around after that. Well, you know he didn't just sit around after that, because we hear a little bit later on in John's Gospel that when Jesus comes to Jerusalem, he stops for dinner and an overnight sleepover at Lazarus' house before he goes into Jerusalem. And all of the chief priests and the scribes have decided that, well, maybe they should get rid of Lazarus too, because, you know, he's attracting attention. He's that guy that Jesus brought back from the dead. And I don't think the sentence ends there. I think it goes on with, he's the guy Jesus brought back from the dead, and now he's doing all this stuff like Jesus, and the people are starting to think that this guy's a little bit like Jesus, you know. He might very well have been the original saint. Bartimaeus could have been too. To live the life that Jesus teaches us to live, and to actually have been given that new life by Jesus. Lazarus is going to do what with it? He's going to live it out. He's going to live it out. That's the thing. This is such a good time of year for remembering that. And such a good time of year for doing this Angels Among Us thing. Because it's a time of year when children go out on Halloween, many of them dressed as their favorite character or their hero. We have All Saints when we call to mind all of the saints of the church. All of the saints of the church. Remembrance Day is coming up, when we remember the sacrifice so many made. And the year is turning from, it's the time of year that turns from light to darkness. What will get us through the darkness? Light. The light we make. The light we make in our lives, right? The light we share with others. Living the light of Jesus. I had absolutely no idea I have absolutely no idea that that's me in 30 years. If I last that long. I have no idea how many of these people, I mean, these could be nice people or not. I have no idea. I'm going to assume they are, right? Before we get to know someone, we should always assume the best and then get to know them. Because it's in assuming the best that we will draw the best out of them, isn't it? Think about that. Remember when Jesus is asked about what's the greatest commandment? And he says the greatest commandment is to love God. And the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. How do you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself? You can't, is the answer. You need to love yourself. Well, how do you love yourself? But in recognizing the good, the kindness, the love that is in you. And then you share that in loving your neighbors. That's got to be the truest definition of being saintly. Surely it does. When you do that, think of how you're impacting others. Think of how that is becoming, you are becoming not just an example for others, but, I hate that word. Because we use it so often when we talk about Jesus, don't we? Jesus is the example. Makes him kind of sound like he's the example in a math quiz or something. He's the inspiration. Isn't that such a that's a better word, isn't it? For saints. They're an inspiration. They're not just an example that teaches us, but they, by even just doing what they did, are an inspiration that we can too. Oh man, I'm starting to sound like last week, aren't I? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, is the thing. And that's why that's why remembering all saints is so important. Remembering that we're all saints, that capacity is in all of us, is so important. Yes, you can, and you can share that with other people. Now, All Saints is one day. The Angels Among Us thing is 42 days, I think, right? Because it goes to the 12th of December. And in those 42 days, we're hoping for 100 random acts of kindness. 100. That should be in the first hour, really. Don't you think? It should be like just in the first hour. It should be. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Because it's within us to do that. It's within us to do it. It's within us to share it. It's within us to live it.